Hey, Dennis.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well. I hope you are.
Yeah. How's
I
things
missed
going?
you. I missed yesterday's class of my electricity went out. So what
Oh,
did I miss yesterday? If you could just kind of give me an idea. I can watch it online, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, we listened to a farmer who is from North Carolina who has built a pretty successful local brand, and we listened to the techniques that she or watched the techniques that she has used to build awareness of her products somewhere between Greensboro and Winston-Salem, I think. And and then the conversation became about how our various companies can partner with people who already have connectivity to a customer. Like, for example, this farmer has about 100 accounts, and she actually delivers to those people on a weekly basis using a truck with her branding on it, which really builds awareness. And
Right.
so we talked about the idea of joining up with some of these companies like this, some of these farms, some farmers markets, so that you could kind of piggyback on the delivery to their customers and be like an add-on or something, or some kind of commission out or something. And that way, you don't have to pay shipping. The people are, they're getting their products directly from somebody who's already set up to deliver. So we talked a lot about that in the ability to partner with other people. And then we also got into working with groups like associations, and the conversation was around Sana with her egg kits that she makes. Why not connect with some of the egg companies or the Egg Association in North Carolina, et cetera, and work a deal with them where she could promote her product because it promotes the sale of eggs. So those kinds of organizations would be interested in something, whether it's social media or who knows. But that's what we talked about, is really how to partner with organizations that have similar interests and that could actually be cheaper for you than just shipping it and you standing around a farmer's market all day. So that's kind of the gist, I think, of what we talked about.
That sounds wonderful. I'm sorry I missed that, but I'll have to, since they're recorded, I'll have to
Yeah,
tune in and watch it because
yeah,
I'm very interested in everything you just said. It makes total sense.
yeah. The whole idea of I call it the last mile, but the connectivity to the end user customer is really the biggest challenge that we all face. How do we ship it to them? Do we have a retail store? Do we have our own delivery fleet? Blah, 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 blah. So if somebody already has done all that and you can figure out a way to partner with them because it makes them look good, right?
Mhm.
Then it seems logical to do that. I'll just give you one story from my past. So I had a coffee company, and we basically set up companies to have like a Starbucks type experience in their coffee. So they weren't just having crappy office coffee. And we ended up with about 72 companies using the service in the Washington, D.C. metro area and in Charlottesville, Virginia, where I live. And the problem I had was they all required servicing. They had to have their coffee refilled, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, I can't go around to 72, it just was crazy. So we figured out that we could work with a courier company. The couriers were losing business because everyone's using email now instead of having physical delivery. So we had all these couriers that were on bicycles. We trained them how to do the coffee, and they loved it. And they became coffee people, and all of our accounts were serviced by people on bicycles.
So like cycling baristas.
Exactly.
I
And
love it.
they carried the coffee in their little satchels and their, creamers or whatever else we needed to provide. They were, that's what they did. So that was an example that worked for me really well. I only I paid the courier company some kind of percentage or some amount of money. It was very affordable, and then they in turn paid their couriers however they pay their couriers. I don't know, but So there's lots of opportunities. If somebody's got the last mile connectivity, be creative in thinking, how can you glom onto that and partner on that and make it worth it for you and for the party, the potential party.
I love that. Now, forgive me for asking this, but where is it that we can view like yesterday's? Would that be on the Facebook page or
No,
on YouTube?
it's something that we're a little slow these days, but it'll be on accelerateworld.org under member resources, and there'll be a lot of them are there already. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see the little YouTube emblem.
Okay.
But we're a little bit behind in uploading those, so it may take a little bit to get those there. I'm not sure. I think the last 3 have not been uploaded yet because of our work is done by interns who also are full-time students. So sometimes there's a little bit of a lag and stuff like that, but it'll eventually get there. What happens is the event or our meeting is recorded on Zoom, and Zoom basically stores the file for a few days, but you have to download it from there and you have to put it somewhere. So what we do is we upload it to YouTube, and we have an Accelerate Rural YouTube channel, which has all of our videos going all the way back to last September. All of our guest speakers, all kinds of stuff. So that's a real resource. There's lots of good stuff there, even beyond what you've seen here in the class. And like I said before, I try to make the material relevant to who signed up for the class. So each time we do this, it's a completely different group of people and companies. Sometimes I have a lot of farmers, sometimes I don't have any. Sometimes I have, the material is different every 10 weeks. Time can attest to that because he's participated before. So it's a little bit of a lot of different things going on, but you can go through there and see. I highly recommend the interview with the CEO of Etsy. If any of you have sold on Etsy or thinking about selling on Etsy, I think you'll find that to be really, really fascinating. And Chad Dickerson is his name, and he was the CEO of Etsy from 2011 to 2019, I think, or 2018. So he took them from 4 million in sales to 440 million in sales.
Wow.
So he's seen a lot, and he was just really good. He happens to be a Greenville native, just randomly. So that's good to know. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. I'm still looking for you for Shop Rural Day, girl. Don't forget.
Okay.
I think you do good. We have Ashley from Copper Ashes has come on, and she sells a lot of crystals and stuff like that. And that's
cool.
and also the other thing is one of the biggest categories on Pop Shop Live is enamel pins.
That's really cool.
It is a gigantic part of their business. They have a woman they told me about in rural New Hampshire who does her own enamel pins, and every time she goes live, she makes $30,000.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm in the wrong business. But anyway, so okay, I guess it's time for me to stop blabbing. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to have a relatively short class. We're going to get pumped up by Simon Sinek again. If you remember him from our very first class, he was the one who told us about finding your why. So this video is new. Hopefully it'll be helpful to everybody. Make sure everybody mutes. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, with any luck. And all right, there we go.
Clearly, our lives are finite. We're born, we die, we come, we go. But life is infinite. The game of life will continue with us or without us. We don't get to choose the nature of the game. Life is infinite. We don't even get to choose if we want to play in the game or not. Once you're born, you're in it. We get one choice. Do you want to play with a finite mindset, or do you want to play with an infinite mindset? To play with a finite mindset means waking up every day and say, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to be better than everybody else, I'm going to accumulate more power, more responsibility, more money, whatever it is, whatever your metric is, I'm going to get more than anybody else. Me. And when you die, you take none of it with you. Or we can choose to live our lives with an infinite mindset, which means I'm going to leave this world, this school, in better shape than I found it. It means I'm going to devote my life to see that those around me rise. We've all had teachers, and some of you are those teachers, where 20 or 30 years from now, I can go to one of your students and say, you're a remarkable human being, you've accomplished so much in your life. How did you become the person you are today? And they will tell me your name. We all remember the teacher who believed in us. We all remember the teacher who had our backs. We all remember the teacher who saw something in us that nobody else saw. And that's what it means to live with an infinite mindset. It means we devote ourselves to that mindset for everyone in our lives. That other teachers will say that about us. Other principals will say that about us. Other students will say that about us. Our friends will say that about us. I am who I am today because of you, and I will commit to live the same life that you taught me how to live. And you will literally live on beyond your own lifetime. When you're gone, others will carry your work for you. This is what it means to live an infinite life, and it is just a choice. I have 5 little rules that you can follow as you find your spark and bring your spark to life. The first is to go after the things that you want. Let me tell you a story. So a friend of mine and I, we went for a run in Central Park. The Roadrunners organization, on the weekends, they host races. And it's very common at the end of the race, they'll have a sponsor who will give away something, apples or bagels or something. And on this particular day, when we got to the end of the run, there were some free bagels. And they had picnic tables set up, and on one side was a group of volunteers. On the table were boxes of bagels, and on the other side was a long line of runners waiting to get their free bagel. So I said to my friend, let's get a bagel. And he looked at me and said, the line's too long. And I said, free bagel. And he said, I don't want to wait in line. And I was like, free bagel. And he says, nah, it's too long. And that's when I realized that there's 2 ways to see the world. Some people see the thing that they want, and some people see the thing that prevents them from getting the thing that they want. I could only see the bagels. He could only see the line. And so I walked up to the line, I leaned in between 2 people, put my hand in the box, and pulled out 2 bagels. And no one got mad at me, because the rule is you can go after whatever you want. You just cannot deny anyone else to go after whatever they want. Now, I had to sacrifice choice. I didn't get to choose which bagel I got. I got whatever I pulled out, but I didn't have to wait in line. So the point is you don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do it the way everybody else has done it. You can do it your way. You can break the rules. You just can't get in the way of somebody else getting what they want. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, sometimes you're the problem. We've seen this happen all too recently with our new men of science and empirical studiers and these men of finance who are smarter than the rest of us until the thing collapsed. And they blamed everything else except themselves. And my point is take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability. That's lesson 2. Lesson 3, take care of each other. You want to be an elite warrior. It's not about how tough you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how fast you are. If you want to be an elite warrior, you better get really, really good at helping the person to the left of you and helping the person to the right of you. Because that's how people advance in the world. The world is too dangerous and the world is too difficult for you to think that you can do these things alone. If you find your spark, I commend you. Now, who are you going to ask for help, and when are you going to accept help when it's offered? Learn that skill. Learn by practicing helping each other. It'll be the single most valuable thing you ever learn in your entire life. To accept help when it's offered and to ask for it when you know that you can't do it. The amazing thing is, when you learn to ask for help, you'll discover that there are people all around you who've always wanted to help you. They just didn't think you needed it because you kept pretending that you had everything under control. And the minute you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I don't think I can do this, you will find that lots of people who love you will rush in and take care of you. But that'll only happen if you learn to take care of them first. Lesson 4. Nelson Mandela is a particularly special case study in the leadership world because he is universally regarded as a great leader. And he was asked one day, how did you learn to be a great leader? And he responded that he would go with his father to tribal meetings. And he remembers two things when his father would meet with other elders. One, they would always sit in a circle. And two, his father was always the last to speak. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does two things. One, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And two, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. And at the end, you will get your turn. It sounds easy, it's not. Practice being the last to speak.
Number 5.
Remember this. As you gain fame, as you gain fortune, as you gain position and seniority, people will treat you better. They will hold doors open for you. They will get you a cup of tea and coffee without you even asking. They will call you sir and ma'am, and they will give you stuff. None of that stuff is meant for you. That stuff is meant for the position you hold. It is meant for the level that you have achieved of leader or success or whatever you want to call it. You can accept all the free stuff. You can accept all the perks. Absolutely, you can enjoy them. But just be grateful for them and know that they're not for you. I remember getting off the Acela. I took the Acela from New York to Washington, D.C. And I got off the train like everybody else. And I was walking down the platform like everyone else. And I walked past General Nordy Schwartz, who used to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, the head of the Air Force. And here I did, see a guy in a suit, schlepping his own suitcase down the platform just like me. And just a couple months ago, he was flying on private jets and he had an entourage, and other people carried his luggage. But he no longer held the position, and so now he got to drag his own suitcase.
Real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all we really have to do. And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs. And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. One of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. When everything goes right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. It's things like staying late to show somebody what to do. It's things like when something does actually break, when something goes wrong, instead of yelling and screaming and taking over, you say, try again.
What's the millennial question?
Apparently, millennials as a generation, which is a group of people who were born approximately 1984 and after, are tough to manage. And they're accused of being entitled and narcissistic, self-interested, unfocused, lazy. And because they confound leadership so much, what's happening is leaders are asking the millennials, what do you want? And millennials are saying, we want to work in a place with purpose. We want to make an impact. We want free food and beanbags. Somebody articulates some sort of purpose, there's lots of free food and there's beanbags, and yet for some reason, they're still not happy. There's a missing piece. I can break it down into 4 pieces. One is parenting, the other one is technology, the third is impatience, and the fourth is environment.
Let's talk about parenting first. Too many millennials have grown up subject to what has been described as a failed parenting strategy. Too many of them were told as they were growing up that they were special, that they can have whatever they want just because they want it. They got medals for coming in last. They got participation medals. We know that it devalues the feeling that somebody who works hard and comes in first place, and it actually makes the person who comes in last embarrassed because they know they don't deserve it. So it actually makes them feel worse. It actually doesn't help. There are a lot of kids who got into honors classes, not because they deserved it, but because their parents complained. And they got A's not because they earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents. Then those kids graduate and they start a job. And in an instant, they find out that they're not special, that you don't get anything just because you want it. You get nothing for coming in last, and your parents cannot help you get a promotion. And in an instant, their entire self-image is completely shattered. And so what you find is that there's an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations. Then we add in technology. There's a chemical in our body called dopamine. Dopamine is responsible for the feelings we get when we find something we're looking for or we accomplish something we set out to accomplish. You know that great feeling you get when you cross something off your to-do list, or when you win the game, when you hit the target? Other things that release dopamine include alcohol, nicotine, gambling, and it's the root of a lot of addiction. Now, we also know that dopamine is released with cell phones and social media. So that bing, buzz, flash, and beep that we get from our phones that feels so good, it releases dopamine. We like getting it. So now we have a young generation with basically unfettered access to social media and cell phones. We have age restrictions on alcohol, we have age restrictions on smoking, and we have age restrictions on gambling. We have no age restrictions on this other dopamine-producing device called social media or cell phones. And so what's happening is it's becoming hardwired, where our young generation isn't learning the coping skills and coping mechanisms to turn to another human being when they're struggling or stressed. They're turning to social media or their cell phones. You add in the next one, impatience. This generation is often accused of being entitled. They're not entitled, they're impatient. How did they grow up? They grew up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it shows up the next day. You want to watch a movie, you don't check movie times, you just log on and download it whenever you want to watch it, stream it. In fact, if you want to get hold of somebody, you don't leave a message on their machine and wait 4 hours for them to get the message and call you back. You just text them and they'll call you, they'll get back to you literally instantaneously. They have falsely applied the instant gratification model to life fulfillment and career fulfillment. They want it all instantaneously. The problem is life, relationships, career are not destinations. That's not how it works. It's not a scavenger hunt. It's a journey. And then we get to the fourth and most egregious of the 4 observations, environment. We're now taking this wonderful, smart, idealistic, ambitious, hardworking, good group of people that were dealt a bad hand, and we're putting them in corporate environments that do not care about them as human beings. Do you know the quickest way to destroy trust and destroy cooperation in a business, literally in one day? lay people off, and everyone gets scared. The company has just communicated to everybody else, this is not a meritocracy. We don't care how hard you work or how long you've worked here. If we miss our numbers and you happen to fall on the wrong side of the spreadsheet, I'm sorry, we cannot guarantee employment. In other words, we come to work every day afraid. And we're asking our youngest generation to work in environments where how would any of us ever stand up and admit, I made a mistake? All of these things no one would ever admit inside a company because it puts a target on your head in case there's another round. And so we keep it to ourselves. And we've literally created cultures in which every single day everybody comes to work and lies, hides, and fakes. And we're asking our youngest generation to work and succeed and find themselves and build their confidence and overcome their addiction to technology and build strong relationships at work. We're asking them to do this, and these are the environments we've created. What are we doing?
Point is we now, in industry, we now have a responsibility to make up the shortfall and to help this amazing, idealistic, fantastic generation build their confidence, learn patience, learn the social skills, find a better balance between life and technology. Because, quite frankly, it's the right thing to do.
This is what empathy means. It means if there's an entire generation struggling, maybe it's not them. We're not asking these questions. We are not practicing empathy. We have to start by practicing empathy and relate to what they may be going through. And it will profoundly change the decisions we make. It will profoundly change the way we see the world.
Okay. Now that I've bummed you all out, the main point that I wanted to make with this is this idea of empathy for others. Many of you come from corporate environments where you were maybe feeling some of these feelings, being in the corporate environment, and you chose to become an entrepreneur. And I think personally that one of the advantages that entrepreneurs have is you can create your culture and your environment where you might not be able to do that in a bigger company. So I see more people becoming entrepreneurs or wanting to become entrepreneurs than ever before in history, really, if you think about it. When I was in high school and college back in the 70s, nobody wanted to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wanted a job at IBM or Xerox or some other big company. And most of the education and processes were oriented toward getting a job in a place like that, and most of the training. So one of our goals here is to try to introduce you to a few different ideas of what you need to learn. And I think empathy will help you a great deal with customers. As you do your own business, as you start to deal with people, think about some of these things that he said, particularly if it is a younger generation that is buying from you. And keep some of these things in mind. So I'll open it up if anybody wants to comment in general on what we saw. Anyone?
Found that very powerful. I'm in the boomer generation, but my children are in the millennials. So I kind of
Me too.
put some thoughts in there.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same situation. Anyone else?
I thought he drew a great, he tied a lot of pieces together, and he presented it in a way that was an aha moment because, as he said, we pampered and allowed these people to win awards that they weren't entitled to, and instinctively they knew that they shouldn't receive it. So they've kind of carried it along with them, and then we're throwing them into situations where they're going to fail. And so all that does is reinforce they don't need to be there. That was interesting.
Yeah. I know there's
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I was just saying, I totally agree. And now I sort of have an understanding of it. But honestly, that doesn't help me much. Like, I now, like, that begs the question. It's one thing to understand it, but then another to sort of work with it and move forward. And I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's struggling with this, but at least I sort of understand why these kids have like no sense of urgency or like buy-in or anything like that. It makes a lot more sense now. Now we just got to figure out how to deal with that.
Well, for my own opinion is, and I'm not the last one to speak, so I'm already violating Simon's rules, but I think the whole idea of purpose and why really becomes critical here. You know, if you have a strong reason why you're doing what you're doing, and you can attract both customers and potentially employees who share that powerful belief. It's a powerful thing. It's not just a word. It's not just a slogan or a logo. You know, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? And the more real that is, the more real I think your relationships will be, or the people who are connecting to you one way or the other will be more real as well. So I think that's something to think about. Why are you doing it? And anyone else want to jump in here before we call it a day?
Yeah, I'll say that what Judy said, I mean, powerful is the word. He's really good at what he, and I guess how he conveys the message. And I can really relate to a lot of things that he specifically pointed out. And just to give you a quick example, what he said about layoffs. I was trained at one of my companies. They sent me to Europe for 10 months and they trained me, and they had me sign a contract for 3 years that I'll stick with them afterwards. But then 2 years after I came back, one of my mentors, he had been with the company for 35 years. They used to have round of layoffs, like two rounds of layoffs each year. And he was just let go. He was literally walked out of the building without saying goodbye to anyone. And after that, I just didn't want to work there anymore. Like they could do it to him, they could do it to anyone. And that was one of the reasons I left that company. And when I went to another company, I realized it's like that everywhere. So, I can really relate to what he was saying. And also it all goes back to what we have been talking about, the emotional intelligence, being able to relate with each other at a human level instead of kind of being in that corporate rat race, I want this, me. So yeah, I thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, sure. I think, and I do think of you, Sana, because I know you have the corporate background, and some of the others that maybe have seen through this. When I was about 23 or 24 years old, I was a compensation consultant, and I worked with a lot of big companies. And one of my clients was MCI, the telephone company, and I closed this transaction on Christmas Eve with the CFO, and we were riding down in the elevator, and he was actually happy because that day he had let 3,500 people go. He saw that as a big savings, as a way for the company to be better, and he was really happy with the fact that 3,500 people lost their job that day, and that really stuck with me. I found that to be pathetic, and I didn't respect that, but I saw it over and over again. I saw particularly the example where they talked about that you didn't deserve it, but your position did. And so I worked with a lot of CEOs, and when they would retire, it's like they no longer existed. Not always. Sometimes they're bigger than life and they get a lot of attention, but a lot of people, they retire and they basically disappear. They're no longer in that position. They no longer have the network, particularly in their own company. It's a really different world. One of the things that used to happen, it doesn't happen as much now, but in the old days, their retirement pay was dramatically lower than what they earned when they were working. So in many cases, they couldn't order a drink at the country club because they couldn't afford it. So they kept booze in their locker, and they would go and get a shot out of their locker because they couldn't afford to buy one in the restaurant. And I've seen that. So, you know, boo-hoo-hoo for the big CEOs. But the point is, organizations that don't really have a purpose other than making money, you know, they're not that popular these days. And you know, you really look at things. There's a lot of organizations out there now that do have a purpose. People like World Wildlife Fund, if you're familiar with them. I went to an event there. I was invited by their CEO, and they had a 450 people, all hands on deck meeting in their lobby. And I was blown away by the quality of these 450 people that were in this event. You know, these were the best and the brightest, no other way to describe it. And they were all about saving wildlife. That's why they were there. They knew they weren't going to get wealthy, but they just had these incredible people that were so obviously gifted and unusual and talented. And there they were to protect animals. And it really made an impression on me. So anyone else?
If no one else has anything to say, I have a request for something I'd like for you to speak to, you know, during this course, if you don't mind. The imposter syndrome. I'm dealing with that bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know if at some point maybe that can be addressed or something.
I'll see what I can find on that. I can tell you that you know, if you ever saw the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio or whatever his name is, he was a con man, and he was
Ask me if you can.
yeah.
Long
And there's a scene in there. I think it's one of the first times he's dressed in a pilot uniform and he's sitting in the cockpit of an airplane, but he has never flown before. And he's sitting there, and all of a sudden the plane starts going down the runway, and it just blows his mind. He had no idea what it actually felt like. He knew how to get in position, but he had no idea what it was actually like. And I think that's a really good example of imposter, because he really didn't do the work to be in that position, right? He talked his way into it. He was a con man. And sometimes if you really connect with your purpose and why you're doing something and really think about it, and like that video of the guy, you know, working out, you build the muscle and you build the you know, this is what I really want. This is who I am. I'm defined by what I believe and why I'm doing it. So that's my layman's response, I guess, to imposter symptom or whatever, symposium, whatever the right word is. The imposter aspect of it is the more integrated you become with why you're doing something and who you are, and the clearer you are why you're doing it, you'll find a lot of these constructs fall away. You know, I went through it. I went through a corporate life also, and I was much happier once I started. Even though I didn't make near as much money, I was much happier once I started being me and what I was trying to do, and it made it fun to get up every day instead of, oh my God, I got to go in there again. So that's my reaction, but I will see if I can find anything right on that specific point. Anyone else?
I just like to say, Judy, you're not the only one. I've dealt with it my entire career, basically my entire life. And now that I'm doing my own thing, I feel like it's gotten worse for me. So yes, Dennis, I would appreciate something on that as well.
Right. I will do my best. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. Well, for those of you participating in Shop Rural Day, if you haven't already done this, I'd like you all to consider doing a second show a little later in the day for the West Coast audience. I'm told that they have a tremendous number of people in California on the Pop Shop Live. So if you're doing a show at 2 or 3 in the afternoon on Thursday, East Coast time, that's lunchtime or even earlier on the West Coast. So give some thought to doing a second show, even if it might only be 30 minutes or something shorter. But do give some thought to that. I like to point that out. The other thing I wanted to point out, and Alex may get into this, but try to have some fun also. One of the things that one of the companies is going to do, they have an old popcorn popper. It's a long story, but this popcorn popper is important. And they're going to put slips of paper in there with discounts on it, and they're going to pull it out and say, this discount for the next 15 minutes, and out of old popper. And stuff like that can be fun. So give some thought to having some fun with the event. Also, I think it'll make it a little better for everybody.
Dennis, a question. If we schedule our time on Pop Shop Live on the East Coast at 2, how will the people on the West Coast, will it just alert them immediately? I mean, does it really matter?
Well, it depends. If somebody is at work and they can't sit and watch it, that's different than home after work, right? So I don't know. My thinking is, a couple of shows, even if you cut your first one in half, maybe you do 2 30 minutes instead of one 1 hour one.
Can you do that? You can cut your time in half? Okay.
If you want. I'm just concerned that if they've got 20,000 people on the West Coast and all of our people go off the air before they even kind of get to their computer or their phone, I think it'd be a missed opportunity. So that's where that's coming from. All right.
Dennis, do you happen to know the logistics of how this discount on air work? Like if I were to say, hey, for the next 15 minutes, there's a discount on product, how does that work? Because when I set up the products, they were set up with a specific price. Do I have to manually go in and?
Good question. I'll find out the answer. I believe you can do stuff when you're live. You can add products, you can change products. So I'm not sure. My guess would be you have to change the price on your app there for that time period. That would be my guess. But I will find out from Alex and make sure we find out.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Dennis, I know you may have discussed this. This is Yolanda.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know you may have discussed this, but exactly how does is it a $10 off coupon? How does that work?
Well, my understanding is it's $10 off their first purchase. So it's a code they have to have when they register to buy on Pop Shop Live, right? So that's important. And they use that code. And my understanding is Pop Shop Live pays that $10. So I don't know if they send it to you as a merchant. I don't know the ins and outs, but that is not coming out of you. That is coming out of Pop Shop Live.
Okay, so I could keep my pricing as is. I don't have to mark up like Walmart or Target does.
No.
And then say, oh, it's a sale.
Yeah, I understand. But I do think that, one of the things that, and it's easy for me to say, you guys are on the firing line. This is really about exposure. Yes, we want to make sales, but what, again, going back to kind of Simon Sinek, whether are you playing a finite game or an infinite game? The finite game is, you want to make sales during this event, et cetera. The infinite game is you're developing a new platform to a network that has more than 50,000 people signed up to it, right? And more are going to be signed up because you're participating. So part of the idea is to really get them as customers. So if you think about what does it cost to get a customer, if you have to buy ads, you have to do free shipping, whatever, all that stuff applies here. So be creative. Don't worry about, oh my God, I'm going to sell everything the rest of my life at this discounted price. No, you're not. But to get a whole bunch of new customers at one time is a really good idea. And if you can then continue on the platform beyond this day, which I hope you will, there's no reason not to, you can actually build a significant channel, particularly if you have developed a little bit of a shtick on the network, right? Whether it's this discount, short-term discount, or maybe you sing a song, or I don't know, whatever. You can be creative, and people go, oh, I like that lady. That's cool. That's a cool deal. So that's my opinion anyway.
Dennis, is it $10 or 10%?
$10.
Oh,
They changed it on me. They started off with 10% off, and then somebody at Pop Shop Live management got concerned, and it turned into $10 off your first purchase.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I hate when they change, but this is a startup company. They're trying to figure it out too. So I try not to be too hard on them, but it's a moving target, and things aren't always exactly as promised. But overall, I think they're doing a good job. They're trying, and we just have to see, can we see a lot of people and be exposed to a whole bunch of customers? That's the plan. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I just want to check the chats real quick to see what somebody's saying. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay, so we answered that. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have for everybody here. We'll our next class will actually be the Monday after after this weekend, next Monday. And tomorrow there's no class, and I'm available for any of you all if you have questions or concerns or need, Alex is not being responsive or whatever. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. You all have my contact info, and I'm going to be full bore on Shop Earl Day, from all the way from now until it ends. All right. I'll see you all later. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye-bye.